Today I'm comparing fixed ND filters with variable ND filters. If you're into photography, at some point you'll come across ND filters. These are neutral density filters that lower the amount of light that is let into your camera. Basically sunglasses for your camera. They enable you to take longer exposures in the day to blur any moving things in your shot, or even to get rid of them altogether with really long exposures. So they're really good for taking photographs of waterfalls or any movement that you might want in seascapes or anything like that. Also, if you're a filmmaker, they enable you to stick to the 180-degree shutter rule, so you can keep your shutter speed at 1/50th of a second and still use a wide aperture to isolate the subject from the background. There are two different types of ND filter: fixed NDs and variable NDs. Now on paper it looks like a variable ND filter would be the best way to go, as all you need to do is rotate the outer part of the filter to let more or less light in, instead of having lots of different filters like you would with fixed NDs. However, there's a little bit more to it than this. With variable ND filters, it's easy and quick to change the level of ND that you want. If you want certain settings, all you do is dial those in and then rotate the filter until you get a good exposure with those settings. So say for instance, I wanted a shutter speed of 1/30th of a second to get some motion blur. I could get that, I could set the aperture to wherever I wanted it, and then I could rotate the ND filter to get a good exposure. So this means you can really dial it in with a variable ND. Also, in theory, once you've bought one, that's it. No need to buy any more. Most variable ND filters are great from about 1 to 6 stops, but if you want more than that, you will have to buy more filters. As they're made up of two pieces of polarized glass, you will sometimes get a bit of the polarization effect in your shots, so you could rotate it to get the correct exposure, but end up with some weird looking colors. If you do go above a certain level of ND, you will start to get that dreaded X pattern. And be very wary of companies that claim their filters don't do this. Because of the way that these filters work in having two bits of polarized glass, there's no getting away from this X pattern. And it's exacerbated the wider the angle of lens that you're using with a variable ND filter. The only good ones are the ones that are sold in sets of 2 and have hard stops to stop you rotating the filter into this X pattern part of the darkening. Also, as you do have two pieces of glass that you're shooting through, there is the potential for this to affect the quality. And if you get moisture inside the filter, you could get condensation building up on the inside of that filter, so there's no way of cleaning it unless you take it apart. I've had this happen to me once, but I did drop my filter into a puddle, so it was my fault. The second type of filter is the fixed ND filter. This is just one piece of darkened glass. They are rated to a certain level of ND, from a reduction of 1 stop right through to 15 stops of light. As there is only one piece of glass, there is less chance of your image quality being degraded. Also, as there is no polarization, you won't have to worry about strange reflections and any patterns in your images, including that X pattern. They're also thinner than variable ND filters, so when you're using a really wide angle lens, they're less likely to vignette. And this just means where you see the edges of the filter in the corner of your shots. Fixed NDs are great at the darker end of the scale, where with a variable ND filter you might get that X pattern. But with these, there's no chance of that whatsoever because they're not polarized glass. You can also buy them as graduated filters, where you can cut the amount of light from only part of your image, and you can also get them in this square format as well as a screw-on or magnetic circular filter. Now there are a few downsides to using fixed NDs, and one of these is that you will need a whole set of them. So to cover every different scenario that you might be shooting in, you will need different levels of ND filtration. If you have the screw-on ones, they do take ages to change, and this is the one most annoying thing about these, especially when they get stuck. Luckily, there are a few companies that make magnetic ones, and these can be changed instantly. I use these and they're absolutely fantastic. They're also not that much more expensive than the screw-on ones. So it does seem that they both have their place for different scenarios and tasks. I'd say if you're predominantly a photographer, go with fixed NDs. And if you're looking at the round ones, go with the magnetic ones over the screw-on ones. They also don't take up too much space and are the easiest to fit and remove. I have a 3-stop, a 4-stop and a 10-stop ND filter. Now on the other hand, if you're predominantly a videographer, go for the variable ND filters. These work really well for this application and you rarely need more than 6 stops of filtration when filming through the day. That is unless you live in a really sunny location. And companies like Polar Pro and Freewell do sets of variable NDs to cover this. They have one for a slightly darker day and they'll have one for a slightly brighter day. And these work really well. Also, they have hard stops, so there's no chance of getting that dreaded X pattern. Now, do you use ND filters or are you thinking about getting some soon? And if so, which ones are you thinking of getting? Let me know in the comments below. It'll be great to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, be sure to click the thumbs up. And also, click on this next video to see what other filters you might be interested in getting, or click on this video down here to learn about using a 10-stop ND filter. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for photography tutorials and reviews every Monday and Thursday. I'll see you next time.